Hello, my name is Beverly Smith and I'm the Associate Director of the Centre for Early Childhood Research and Policy here at the University of Victoria. It's been my good fortune to be part of the team working on a UAKN funded project called Working from the Heart, Co-Creating Educational Resources with Urban Aboriginal Communities. Before I introduce the members of the team that are here with me today, I'd like to acknowledge with respect the unceded territories of the Songhees, Esquimalt and WSÁNEĆ peoples on which this work was conducted. Here with me today for this webinar is Mona Carlson. Mona is an FASD key worker at the Island Métis Family and Community Services Society, and also Patti-Jean Naylor is with the School of Exercise Science, Physical and Health Education, also at the University of Victoria. Funding for this work was greatly appreciated from the UAKN Western Region, Success by Six, the Centre for Outreach Education, and the Island Métis Family Community Services Society. The work we are discussing today is from the UAKN grant, and it was to explore the process and the outcomes of the three collaborations that occurred between the Centre for Early Childhood Research and Policy and three unique Aboriginal communities and partners. By way of format, I'll start and give you the background on the three collaborations, what we did, why we did it, and then I'll turn the camera over to Mona to give you the context of her organization and work, and she can tell you about the process and the impact of the resources that we developed from her perspective. And then I will pass the floor to Patti-Jean Naylor, who will review the data that was collected and analyzed, and she'll share the findings with you. Okay, so our starting point for the work, as is all our work at the center, is the deep understanding that experiences in early childhood really have a significant impact on all facets of later life. And at the center, we have experience in community-based research, and we have a fair amount of expertise in early motor skill and physical activity development. So if we can just take a moment and have a look at what physical activity research tells us. One, we know there's an increasing proportion of Canadian children in the 2 to 5 year old age bracket that are overweight or at risk of becoming overweight. Excess weight between 0 to 5 year olds is strongly associated with overweight and obesity later in life. And PA here is physical activity. We know physical activity sets the foundation for social, emotional, and cognitive development. We know that it helps develop habits that track into adulthood, and we also know that physical activity helps prevent many chronic health issues. So the initial work was to, one, engage with Aboriginal stakeholders to identify strategies to develop and implement culturally appropriate physical activity resources. And the second step, which we're here today to focus on, was to review the processes and learn from them. So the first resource was developed with the WSÁNEC School Board, a woman out there named Renee Sampson. Let me give you a bit of background. WSÁNEC School Board is governed by the Chief and Council of the 4 SANEC bands here on the island. And what they have is a Senchothan language nest for their preschoolers. And when we approached Renee, she had just been charged with expanding the language nest from preschool into kindergarten. So it was an opportune time for her as she was looking to develop new curriculum. So there is a resource many of you will be familiar with called HOP, Healthy Opportunities for Preschoolers. That was developed here at UVic by a number of researchers, Viv Temple, Alison Priest, and others. And this was the starting point for Renee. She worked with the resource, initially looking for activities that were appropriate that she could translate into Sanchothan for her program. Because Renee was a language learner herself, she ended up working quite closely with an elder, John Elliott, to help her with the translation. Now, what Renee says happened was really kind of exciting, that her and the elders started working together, and they wanted to develop their own activities based on their own cultural themes. And so that's what they did. They developed a number of physical activity, literacy activities in Sanchothan that are in use in the preschool and the kindergarten. The second group we worked with was the Victoria Native Friendship Centre. Now the people there, their needs and the direction they wanted to go were really quite different from Renee's. They serve individuals and families from a variety of backgrounds, so one language or one cultural story wasn't the direction they wanted to go in. They wanted something that was in common to the First Nations cultures that they served, and they began thinking along the lines of certain themes like seasons, and then ended up settling on a theme of animals. So we developed this little book called Let's Move with Bear and His Friends, that have a number of activities in it that cover the four major motor skill groups. And then the third resource we developed was with Mona Carlson at the Island Métis Family and Community Services Society. And I'll just pass the camera over to Mona and she can tell you more about it.
Good morning. I'd like to speak a little bit about my background. I've been at Island Métis for some time now, and I'm an FASD key worker. I work with parents and children, either or, that are affected with FAS. I've been part of a visitation program that we developed out at the agency. We've had for quite a few years now, and by my observations, I was noticing that some parents didn't know or were nervous to play with their children in that time slot that we had. So I worked with my team leader at the time and was talking about wanting to develop a group for these parents and the children, because so they could get to have some playtime. I wanted them to get to learn how each other's needs were, what their needs were from the children. What did they know about their parents? What did the parents know about them on a more personal level, and a smaller environment, of participants. I did take training on the HOP program. I believe I took that twice. I really enjoyed it. That's the Healthy Opportunities for Preschools again. And I wanted to develop a criteria that would be suitable for the children that were in the playgroup, but I wanted it to be a Métis specific also. And it was during that training, I think at the end of one of them, and the question was asked, what would I use to develop something with the HOP program? And first thing that came to my mind was the Red River cart, because that's the predominance of the Métis since the beginning of time. So I wanted to put that into the focus, and thought we worked together to develop a book that had the activities in there. And my vision for that whole scenario was going to be a camping trip, and I wanted the children to end up in Batoche. So the whole time I was doing the book with Bev, I think, and with PJ in the beginning, I was in the room where I could have my starting point, and then I could see where the Batoche was going to end up. And so we did quite a few games that were motor skill based, team playing based, to teach the little guys how to be team players, how to work together to keep the little sock in the cloud kind of thing, and The parents could also develop, because if you're affected, your motor skills are not developed. You need to keep really reusing them to keep them active and functional. So it was something that they were going to use together to learn to play together, and the kids could learn the styles of the parent or parents, and then vice versa. I think in the beginning the parents had a hard time getting on the floor and actually playing. That's why the book was really, I figured it was really important. They needed to have a sense of belonging with the Métis Red River cart in there, and to learn diversity if they weren't Métis, that they could still learn about the history of it. And getting into an intimate session again, like I said, with a more smaller environment, they could get onto the floor and learn to play without anyone criticizing or judging, or they're feeling not confident, or, to get in there and play. I see the group utilizing this book. We haven't used it as of yet. It's in the group because of my little guys. Some of them are up to 3 years old in there, and I think the book was left for 4 years old up to like 8. So I run another group called No Batteries, which I'm hoping to introduce that one in there. They're older children, and they can get to use the book and the resource kit with the activities that are involved in it for the camping trip. I just want to go back to the developmental of the group again. I've never heard of a group. This was my forte was going to be to develop the group, because the parents had a more one-to-one with their children to get to learn their needs, and children can learn their needs again also. So playing was building the building blocks for memories, and I always thought that was really important to whether they were getting their children, what the situation was, they were still going to have the memories of mom did this and dad did that, and they could have their little lives and their memory blocks all in the same time from that play group. So the journey of the cart, I had a lot of guidance and direction from knowledge keeper Pat Ackland, who did the foreword, and we talked deeply many times about the feeling of belonging, even if they didn't know a lot of history about the Métis, that hearing and playing the game was going to give them a sense of belongingness, which is important from the get-go in any child, to have your heart know it does belong somewhere. And again, the building blocks for culture and diversity. I'm First Nations, but I'm still a component of Métis, and I'm very interested in how connected we all are with the culture piece, and how important that is for anybody. So, yeah, I'm just going to get the kit out. And these some of the things that are in the kit. I'll put it up. This is the bag that the resources come in, and the book is right beside me also. And it goes right into the clouds are, this is the Red River. I like to show that part. This is the Red River, and they have to jump over it and get around the Red River, and it goes onto the floor. The children get to use these little pieces of cardboard, and they make it a log. They put bugs under it, and they paint you make it whatever they want it to do to be a little piece of the forest. And the team playing is with the big piece of yellow material here, and there's a pair of socks in here I can't speak to the sock, but this is where they hold the 4 quarters, 4 children, or 2 parents and 2 children, and they got to learn to keep the sock into not let it fall out. So it's team playing and learning how to coordinate, and so it doesn't get thrown out. And then we do, the very end of the book is so cute. It's got, you do the hole punch with because it's moon and stars against the sky, and we get a hole puncher, which is a star shape. We star shape into the yellow piece of construction paper, and then you hold them up against the blue, and you're going to hold that up, and you're going to see the stars, the lanterns in the sky. So it's really, it's got a purpose behind it, and they really learn how to get the stars and what it means. So like I say, it's a camping trip, and they really enjoy it, because not many people get to go camping that often anymore. So I thought the camping trip would be you know, a fantasy and they could really make it theirs. Okay. I'll just read them. Yeah. I just want to go over some resources that Island Métis we have already put out to people and participants for the journey of the Métis Red River Cart. With the resource, we do a presentation and / training on what everything means for the book and for the camping trip. And we've been to, the book launch was in November 2014, and that was a celebration in the community. And in February 2015 was Experience the Métis Spirit for Early Childcare Programs and Service Providers. That was over in Vancouver. And in March 2015, Experience the Métis Spirit for Primary Teachers. And on August 18th, 2015, Experience the Métis Spirit, Kindergarten to Grade 3, Institute for Provincial Teachers. And in November 6th, 2015, the Experience the Métis Spirit for Surrey, Métis Community Services, Surrey, BC. November 7th was 2015, Experience the Métis Spirit at BC Aboriginal Childcare Society Conference in Richmond, BC. And February 25th, 2016, we will be up to the Journey of Red River Cart will be up at Métis Commission for Children and Families of BC and Kamloops. And we're holding another one in April in Victoria again for childcare workers, daycares that are not recognized in the government eye. So it's been going quite far. Really pleased with the impact it's had on just people learning a piece about the culture and then learning to do the motor skills for their children in a safe, fun, healthy way. So thank you.
Great. And now over to PJ Naylor.
Hi there. Thank you very much, and thanks, Mona. That was awesome. And as you heard from Bev, we did have a goal to understand the process and of collaborating and co-creating resources that started really from training on physical activity and then moving into much more of a cultural resource and making it meaningful. So our research was really to look at that collaborative process and learn from it. And the first thing we did collaboratively was work with all the partners around the table to identify the questions of interest. So we started with some around how do we contextualize resources into communities, and then each of the partners also got to reflect questions and add to the questions. So it was a qualitative interview style. We interviewed 2 out of 3 of the major champions of the resource development. One just didn't have time to take part at that moment. And we asked questions like, what did you do to develop the cultural resource, physical activity resource? What made the process easier? What made the process challenging? Having gone through the process, what would you advise other communities about? And how do you implement and contextualize resource? So what you're going to see next is we took on, after asking the questions and developing the questions together, we aimed at exploring the process, the facilitators and barriers. And after taking an interview, Sumya Nadarjan did the interviewing and then conducted a thematic analysis, and we generated some codes, categories, and themes, which I'm going to show you in a second. And then we developed a few data displays to give meaning to it. So this is a word cloud. And in a word cloud, when the themes emerge, the ones that are larger are the primary themes. I'm going to talk through them a little bit more. But you can see in here that rooted, creative, time, and support were primary themes. But we also had a lot of other minor things that emerged, like relational, ownership, collaborative, the future, the location, community leadership, the role of the professional, need, things like that. So this shows you all of the things that emerged. With the primary ones that I'll discuss today being time, creative, rooted, and support. Time focused a little bit on really the lack of it and the ability to have the time to work with different groups and people's concepts of what needed to be in resources, that this was one of the challenges of the project, because typically people that are working in the field are also, this starts to happen off the corner of the desk. The second one was how the process was powerful and creative, and then rooted both in the community and the practices of the community, and that the support from the coordinator from the Center for Early Childhood Research, Bev, was really helpful in the process, because Bev went out and just helped meet and support the process along. So under time, quotes like, I think the biggest challenge is time. It's making time for meetings. It's making time, getting things back and forth to create resources. And there's a multitude of other things besides the things that you have to do on a daily basis. So that's really the quotes that apply to that. In terms of creative, I love the creative process, to own your feelings and put it together and have a vision. And then rooted in culture. The cultural part was woven in, so we looked at each one individually and then went back to the cultural piece to decide how does this physical activity motion relate to our culture, and how can we make sure that it is rooted in the culture. And then in terms of practice, we incorporated in the day-to-day activities with kids. It can be part of groups as they're going, and that's the feeling I wanted to create, was to be safe and just be with children. So those are some of the quotes that emerged related to the primary themes. And then finally here you see a data display that tried to bring it all together. And you see one of the issues was the importance of place and meeting and face-to-face within the community itself was very powerful. And the double line you see in the diagram is really that relational process between being in the space, community-led, and then working together, the investment of collaboration and ownership, and then how the process of going through the resources actually created a stronger vision, both personally and felt creative, and that the communal collaborative process strengthened it, and that there were some affective components about it. The process was positive, and that the emotion of creating the resource was positive. Negative, some affect around when it got challenging in some organization where staff changed and responsibilities changed, and you're still trying to maintain the integrity of the resource and the process. And that then the more extraordinary benefit of working on the resource and having the resource emerge. And then there were a number of important factors that were challenges and that also were supports. And basically that's the time, the fact that the communities really felt there was a need for a much culturally embedded resource, and that the support that's needed to create these things collaboratively, and doing it and embedding it in the place of work. So that's where we came from in terms of the research and the data, talking about how these processes occur. Thanks. I'll hand you back over to Bev.
Yeah, so in summary, the analysis of the interviews provided us with a meaningful understanding of the processes that were involved with the co-creating the resources, and the themes that emerged highlight some of the important aspects of the process that we'll consider going forward with other co-creation processes. I have a slide here that just represents the team more fully, people that couldn't be here with us today. And the last slide is just thank you for your interest in this project. We really appreciate it. If you have, after the webinar, any questions that you'd like to send to any of us, the email address of reach@uvic.ca is up on the screen for you. And thanks again to the UAKN for supporting this work. It was really important to us. Thank you. And I should also thank the individuals that were involved in it, and also their organizations that did participate in their support in this project. And in summation, I think what began as a project to promote physical activity, I think in a truly collaborative sense, became a project to develop 3 distinct cultural resources. They were first and foremost cultural resources.